Click. Okay, you're free to start.
Okay. I see that we have 8 participants. You want me to wait a little while? You want?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we should have a lot more than that. Maybe a couple of minutes before we start.
Okay.
Yeah, we generally get at least 12 to 16.
Okay. Because I'm ready to start. It's just a matter of.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people usually take a bit.
Yeah, they'll come on. I would get started myself.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. I'm making some adjustments here for me, for us. Okay. I'm going to shrink. There we are. And I'm moving to the corner. Okay. Well, this is the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau. One thing about us that makes this a little unique is that we, instead of being like the Arizona Farm Bureau or the Texas Farm Bureau, which are our neighbors, we are the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau. And so that livestock word in there has been there since the organization started. Sitting next to me is Mr. Bud Dearman, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Okay, my name is Bud Dearman. I'm a Doñana County farmer. I'm also on the board of directors for the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau.
And my name is Benjamin Segovia. I am the Southwest Regional Director for the organization. I have been with them I'm finishing my 11th year. Here, November 1st, I'll start my 12th. But I cover 9 counties. I say I cover, I basically advise. Fairly unique position for me because I get to see what issues come up throughout the 9 counties. And there's some similarities, but there's also some very distinct issues. The ones that are similar, I refer back as part of my knowledge of we had a similar situation in such and such a county, and then we go ahead and I said this is how they approached it. And so, but that's basically my responsibility, is listening to what the issues are, and then there's a lot of other responsibilities, and I'll go into them as we get into it further. Here you'll see the state office staff. We are a staff of 10. The gentleman in the middle with the suit, with a coat and tie, is our CEO, Mr. Chad Smith. The one with no hair. The one with hair is our marketing specialist. And then everybody there has distinct responsibilities. You'll see me there. Again, I do what I do. And then the lady next to the CEO, she is our director for Ag in the Classroom. The lady in the black between me and Tracy, she's our director of organization. Her name's Valerie Huerta. The young lady with a gray dress and black sweater is a regional director in the southeastern part of the state. The lady said this. Can you guys see my cursor? No? Okay. The lady next to her is the director of communications and media. The next lady is the director of government affairs. And then the lady there towards the back she is the, she's not a director, she's regional, supervisor for the Ag in the Classroom program. And then the lady at the very first to your right that is Teresa Widner, and she is the administrative assistant. There is a lot of knowledge there. We might not look very bright or very sharp, but there's a lot of knowledge there, trust me. When there's things with the water, there's things with communication, there's things with social media. Between the team, we take care of it.
And our organizational group, all of it together makes the team.
As we go forward, you're going to see how we're structured. I'll get into that in a little while. In coordinating with Mr. Dearman and Mr. Welt, he asked me, what do we do and who are we? Basically, this comes out of our training manual as to who we are. We are a free, independent, non-government, voluntary grassroots organization of agribusiness families united for the purpose of analyzing their problems and formulating action to achieve educational improvement, economic opportunity, and social advancement. In New Mexico, there are 33 counties. We have 30 county organizations. The reason being is there's up in the northwest and northeast are counties that are very low in population, and it's hard to sustain a group, an organization. So they paired up. You have the county of Mora, San Miguel paired up, and the county of McKinley, anyway, McKinley and another one of the counties, I forget who they're paired up. No, McKinley, San Miguel. And so they're paired up, and that brings us to 30 organizations. And each organization is their own entity. They have their own bylaws. They work in conjunction with the state. Our state bylaws, they may follow the state bylaws as closely as they can, but they don't have to be exactly like the state bylaws. And it's usually they have the leeway to be able to adjust to that. What do? We work to protect and promote American agriculture. That includes protecting all private property rights. A lot of people don't understand. They look at us and they say, well, you guys do this for the farmers and ranchers. No, sir. No, we do it for everybody.
Everybody.
Somebody wants to come into your backyard in the city, that's your private property, and they're trying to justify why they can come into your property. Farm Bureau will be involved in one way, shape, or other to make sure that your private property is your private property. And along those same lines, we protect and secure the American food supply system. Who are we?
Local food, local farmers and ranchers that get together, that make the rules and regulations for our organization. It starts from the actual farmers up. We're local people, your neighbors, you're our family.
As we conduct our business, me being a staff member, we are constantly being confused with insurance. People that know me say, I'm working for Farm Bureau. They go, oh, you're doing the insurance. And I listen to them. Then I go ahead and say, I work for the Federation. A lot of people don't really understand what the Federation does. And we're a sister company with the insurance. The beauty of this is that both New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau and Farm Bureau Financial Services are there to protect the membership and the general public on topics such as economic development and social advancement. So I'm aware of the insurance sector, how they're structured, what they do, why they do it. But as far as me going and selling insurance, I do not sell insurance.
And you can be a Farm Bureau member on the farm and livestock side. You don't have to have Farm Bureau insurance. That needs to be in there too.
Correct. If a person decides to become a Farm Bureau member or go buy a Farm Bureau insurance policy, within that insurance policy, there will be a membership due included in that insurance policy. Yes. If you do not want to buy the insurance, but you still want to support New Mexico agriculture, US agriculture, you can buy the membership and not have to buy the insurance. And I'll explain that a little bit further down the road.
Our first county Farm Bureau was established in 1911 as the Chamber of Commerce Farm Bureau in New York, funded by the Birmingham, New York USDA and Lackawanna Railroad, separated in 1914 to become the County Farm Bureau.
And so part of the reason that it actually broke away from the Chamber of Commerce, but part of the reason they formed was because if you had a farmer that had a bad year, a bad bull or a bad crop of corn or a bad batch of wheat seed, they formed basically to help. How do we help the agriculturalists to continue being an agriculture if that person so choose? And so that's how this was formed. The concept of it was first originated there. The first state farm bureau that organized was Missouri in 1915. And here in New Mexico, the first farm bureau was in the Doña Ana County, right? We're in Las Cruces, we're in the hub right there in the middle of Doña Ana County.
And that was in 1917. Then we went to 1919 where American Farm Bureau Federation was formed and was asking all the state farm bureaus to get involved to form the federation.
When we talk about the Farm Bureau, we're looking at the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau. There is a board of directors that there's 22 board of director members. And then off of those, so those oversee the general business of the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau organization. Through a president, we're structured with a president, first vice president, second vice president, secretary, treasurer, on down. What the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau did was they formed a New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau Foundation. And that is strictly to support the Ag in the Classroom program. Okay. And so you have some of the board members that sit on the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau Foundation, but you also have people from industry. We have representatives there from the dairy industry, representatives there from the cattle industry, just they're promoters. There's individuals there that are good. Their specialty and their knowledge is in fundraising. And so it's basically to do the Ag in the Classroom program. Here's some of what we do, what the Ag in the Classroom program does. They have a program called the Ag 24/7 videos, if you see up here in the left-hand corner. What it is there, I mentioned when the staff was there, I mentioned that there was a director and then the young lady that was the specialist in Albuquerque. It's two individuals to cover the whole state, and that's very difficult. So what they did is they developed a program called Ag 24/7, and what they do is they ask the members to video themselves and send that video in to them, and they have a video library of somebody working cattle, somebody, this is one of the Solopec farms where they're harvesting pecans. There's somebody that is milking the dairy cattle. So it's very unique in the sense that they create this library, and then teachers and other people that want to promote agriculture can access this library through YouTube, through our website, and they're able to see these videos. The other thing they do is they do and I realize it's a misspelled word, but it's done on purpose, advocate training. There is a group, certain groups, whether it be FFA or 4-H, or any group that wants to be trained on advocacy for agriculture, they conduct that training for them. Then during the summer, they usually have teachers' workshops where they encourage teachers to come in and incorporate agriculture education into their curriculum and how they can do it. And the two ladies that are involved with this program are very knowledgeable on what is the legal curriculum for the state of New Mexico for educators, and they work to get that in there. And then they carry it through with classroom presentations. And they try not to do too many classroom presentations, because as you well know, it is very hard to make around and try to hit every school. The other thing they've done is they have the New Mexico Grow Project. They partnered up with USDA and RCS, Natural Resources Conservation Services, there's a grant that was involved in there, and they build raised beds in public schools. And along with those raised beds, there is a hydroponic system so that they can continue learning about growing indoors. The raised beds are great in the, March, April, May, but then they go through the summer break, raised beds stay there. Believe it or not, there's kids that come in and take care of them, because a lot of them here locally in Las Cruces went and entered their goods that they grew last year. They entered them into the fair this year, into the Southern New Mexico State Fair. So that's one of the things that you see there on the sidewalk. You see the kit, the whole kit. It was ready to be picked up by one of the schools that won it. Our communication and marketing representatives, this is what they do. We have a daily email that goes out to all members. Anybody that is an ag producer, it's in the Daily Dirt, and the Daily Dirt usually has 3 items of newsworthy activity that has occurred either in the nation, in the state. Mainly it's those two, the national and state. It keeps everybody informed of legislation. It keeps everybody informed of drought, just different topics that impact farmers and ranchers. It does that. The other thing they do is they do calls to action. During the legislature and any special session, they introduce legislation that might be not be so helpful for farmers and ranchers. So when that occurs, and the bills get analyzed, and then the organization says we need to get our membership active, so we email out calls to actions for them to make phone calls, for them to talk to their local representatives. We do editorials, go into local newspapers. We do letters to the editors explaining why we either support something or we oppose it. We also have a very heavy use of Facebook, Instagram, and then we focus on a display at the New Mexico State Fair. And you see two examples of American Farm Bureau on the national level wanting to keep water protection rules going, and then the other one being the state with food producers deserve certainty. So that's one of the other things that we continue to work with. Within that program is a women's leadership program. Within the Farm Bureau, there's a women's leadership program. And they're working hand in hand with the Farm Bureau members, all the organizations, and they do a lot of community activities. Here recently, they prepared kits for La Casa Domestic Violence Women's Shelter in Las Cruces. They conduct the activities like at local fairs. They do activities that will support food pantry. And currently they were offering a scholarship to Farm Bureau member only who would like to attend the annual meeting and the 2021 Women's Leadership Program Business Meeting. The deadline for that scholarship is over. It was Friday and it's already over. But I'll tell you what, those ladies roll up their sleeves and come in and work just like everybody else.
McDonald House, no.
Yes. Previous years they've donated either food or money or both to the Ronald McDonald House in Albuquerque. I think they did that for 8 years. Last year they were not able to do it because of COVID. I'm not sure what they're planning to do this year, but I'm pretty sure amongst them, they've had discussions and they will do something. We also have a young farmer and rancher program. What we're trying to do is develop the youth. That's going to replace the current farmers and ranchers. I don't know how many of you know this, but New Mexico has one of the highest ages per average of farmers and ranchers. I believe the national average is 61. New Mexico is at 63 years of age. And then there's a huge drop before you start seeing farmers, a group of farmers that are 35 to 40 years coming up. But there's that 20-year gap that's a big concern. So what we do is we have this program to help in the development of them. And that's exactly what they are. They're young farmers and ranchers. There's a project that they do called the discussion meets, and Farm Bureau is known for the farm discussion meets. They have district discussion meets. They have 4, 1 in each squadron of the state. It culminates by having one representative from each one of the 4 districts come to our annual meeting in November and have the state discussion meet. And it's usually individuals that are competing are from 4-H and FFA. There is 5 questions that American Farm Bureau develops. And those 5 questions are developed based on issues, trends that are occurring in the agriculture sector. And they're looking for, how do we move this topic forward? It could be immigration, it could be broadband, it could be increased use of technology. those 5 questions change every 5 years. I'm sorry, they change every year. And those same 5 questions are used across the nation and for the competitions. There's 2 competitions that occur. There is one at American Farm Bureau annual meeting in January, and that's the young ladies and young men that participate in those are very, very sharp. It's very impressive to go to listen to one of those. And then here in the state, we have what is called the collegiate discussion meet, which is also occurs during the November annual meeting. And it boils down to 4 collegiate students competing. Whoever wins that competition will go to the YFNR Leadership Conference in March and represent New Mexico and try to win that competition. And I can tell you the closest we've gotten to that was 2nd. Our goal is to, our goal has always been to win it, but there's a process where if they advance, they start out with about 60 contestants.
And we pay for that.
And the Farm Bureau pays for their expenses to be there.
Right.
But as we move forward in this competition, they go to what is called the Sweet 16, then the 8, we call them the Lucky 8, and then they go to the Final 4, and then whoever wins. And whoever wins gets, it's not, previous years they won a Ford truck, Case IH tractor. They win a packet of very, very good prizes. But anyway, they do that. One of their activities they did was they went to the Ag Teachers Conference held in Ruidoso this year. And right now we're noticing that half of the participants in the YFNR program are gonna age out because the age there is from 18 to 35. If you're over 35, you can't compete anymore in the YFNR programs. They basically, from there, you move on to be in one of the county organizations. So it's interesting. One of the things that I am going to say is that out of the US population, I believe it's a little bit under 1.5% are farmers and ranchers. And so we have to work to replace the farmers and ranchers. What do we do here? Farm Bureau is based on policy development. And what is the process for policy development? Well, Farm Bureau is grassroots. We're a grassroots organization. That means it starts from the bottom up. Most businesses and most organizations go from the top down. Farm Bureau goes bottom up. That means if a farmer or rancher has something that occurs, or the government affairs director sees legislation that's going to impact agriculture, it is brought to the attention of the farmers and the ranchers, and the farmers and the ranchers are the ones that build resolutions, or they develop resolutions to address those issues. Our process is that any resolution can be written up and submitted to the state, but there's also an added process or practice that we encourage all the counties to write resolutions now or during the year and submit them now, so that their boards during their county annual meetings can approve, change, adjust, do whatever they need to do to those resolutions and submit them to the state, so that the state, in the process of their house, we have a House of Delegate meeting, which is scheduled for October 29th. And they will review all those resolutions that were submitted. Now, there's another thing here is that if a county doesn't want to submit the resolution, they can bring it, and they can bring it off the floor. during the House of Delegates meeting. Once those policies have been approved, adjusted, changed, whatever needed, then the House of Delegates will vote on them and they become policy within the state of New Mexico. But those same policies, the new ones, will be carried by our representatives to the House of Delegates with American Farm Bureau. And they'll carry those resolutions or policies now for the state to AFBF. If it merits going to American Farm Bureau, it will be carried and presented on a national level. And then the AFBF delegate body will make the determination whether to keep it or not, or adjust it. Here are some of the issues that we have been working on. We'll start out with New Mexico Department of Game and Fish, non-navigable landowner petitions. This is a rule where if you have private property and you have a stream going through that private property, is it allowable for a fisherman to go on that's inside the stream and go fishing? That is, currently it is being decided by the New Mexico Supreme Court whether that's permissible or not. It's just one of those things. There's a case history here where when the state of New Mexico was established, none of the waters were navigable waters. Okay, so all the waters in New Mexico were considered non-navigable.
Yeah.
And so that is, there's again, working to do the private property, keeping that in first and foremost. If somebody has an emergency and they have to go to the shore, they will be trespassing on private property. And so it's one of those rules that's still up in the air. And so it had been determined that the Department of Game and Fish would make that determination. They have approved several permits, but then it was challenged, and that's where it's at now. The next one is the New Mexico Environment Department clean car rule or clean emissions. The state of New Mexico is looking to adapt the California emission standards. They would prefer to adapt that, the Environment Department and the people supporting that, versus the federal emissions standard. The reason being is the California emission standards are a little more stricter. Within that rule, there's nothing that says that you have to buy an electric vehicle or you have to buy a low emissions vehicle. What you have now, you get to keep. But what it's doing is it's pushing for the new cars that are coming into the state to have lower emission standards or go to where they have no emissions, which is your electric vehicles. But the concern we have is the infrastructure adjustments. What's going to happen to the trucks or vehicles that are being used on farms and ranches? Eventually, there won't be any parts for those type of vehicles. And so it has a potential to impact those. It's a tough one because you sit here and you say, who doesn't want clean air? At one of the meetings I attended for this, I explained the possibility of the infrastructure collapsing and not supporting old vehicles. And there was a couple ladies there that jumped on me and said, well, don't you want clean air? And I never talked about not wanting clean air. I want clean air as much as the next person, but I also have to be realistic and see what impact it's going to have to the agriculture industry. The next one we have is the Livestock Board. as you well know, what happened with the pandemic and the food supply chain. I don't know how many of you went to the grocery store and found that there was no meat, no toilet paper, and no cleaning supplies, or viable cleaning supplies that would counteract this COVID. But the meat inspection program, there's 4 huge meat processing companies here in the United States that basically monopolize that sector, and they're looking at how do we as a nation address these meat inspection programs. New Mexico used to have a meat inspection program. Then the federal government decided not to approve travel for inspectors, and that basically killed it and moved it to the Food Safety Inspection Services in Colorado, and it just basically went away. But now we're looking at bringing that back in so that it allows smaller processing plants to be established that would help local economies and help local ranchers and help the local public being able to access those type of products. The next one is redistricting. As you well know, after every census, there's a redistricting rule that is currently in the process. I listened to that committee, and there's a lot of things that are involved in there, such as trying to keep communities with same interests together. They're leery of meandering, and so it's an interesting process. The committee that was put together was trying to be non-partisan, but as you well know, politics have a tendency to seep in, and so we're tracking it. I believe there was a recommendation for 1 map, and then there was another recommendation for 5 maps of redistricting, and the committee has not made that decision yet. I did see a proposed one where they're looking at taking part of the southern part of Valencia County and adding it to Congressional District 2, which would tip the scale a little bit. And then the last one is a 30x30 executive order. That is where President Biden has declared that by the year 2030, they want to conserve 30% of the land and the water. And there's a lot of questions with this program because there is not a lot of clarity. You look at a state like New Mexico or Nevada that have a lot of federal lands. A lot of that land is already in conservation, or the government has the authority to enact conservation on those lands. So one of the questions is that conservation land, those conservation activities that are being done now, are those considered in this executive order? The farmers and ranchers are the most conservative people you're going to find, quite simply because if they don't take care of the land's not going to take care of them. And so there's been a lot of conservation practices that have been put in place. Again, is that going to be viewed as part of this 30x30, 30%? And then it's also it applies to the water. There's going to be some information coming out in December on the 30x30. The reason it's here on the state issue is because our governor has basically made it into a 30x50 by adding 20% more in there. And so you see it here, you're going to see it again on the national one. We're moving to national issues. We have border issues. I just read today where the Remain in Mexico policy was reinstated for people seeking asylum into the United States. That had been done away with by this administration. It has been put here by a federal judge. It was put back into place. Again, the 30 by 30, end of December, there's going to be some information. I don't even want to call it direction because I don't know. Until you read it, you'll know what it is. And the waters of the US. As you recall, the Obama administration put out WOTUS. It was very restrictive, ambiguous, and it impacted not only farmers and ranchers, that impacted construction companies, developers. Where are you doing with your water? Can you move the dirt to be able to take advantage of leveling your land to be selling it as lots? But what impact will that do to that watershed? So you had permitted, it became it was a heaven for lawyers because they were able to get in there and try to navigate through all this, but it was a nightmare for the people, the business people. And again, not just agriculture, business people, the construction industries, as to what to do. So then under the next administration, they brought in the National Waters Protection Rule. That gave everybody clarity as to what they were gonna, what that rule was. If you look at water and you see where is it connected, you have groundwater, you have surface water, and then you have water that will go underground to go to a reservoir or go to an aquifer. And so you look at that, and at what point in time does surface water, because you look at surface water rights, become subsurface water, and then you have a set of rules for subsurface water also. What happened is they were going to keep the National Waters Protection Rule in place until last month. The Arizona court came and vacated the National Waters Protection Rule. It puts it back on the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers to repeal and write the rule, and that's ongoing now. And so again, it's wait and see what happens there. Another one of the things we do is the endangered species. You heard about the lesser prairie chicken. It's having impacts on the oil and gas industry. And so we work with that. But also, most of that oil and gas industry land is also grazing land. So they don't separate them. They say there's an impact from grazing and there's an impact from oil and gas drilling and maintenance. So we're working with that. And then there's also the Texas hornshell in the lower southeast part of the state. And of course, infrastructure. You hear the bill that they're trying to pass for meat processing, hard infrastructure, and human infrastructure. Basically, you're looking at roads, bridges, and that sort of those things that are needed for the general public and for industry to be able to move around. We jump over to membership.
Yeah, our membership for FOTA is $20,399. The American Farm Bureau goal is $20,370. The way the organization keeps growing is we set goals in membership. This is every year we at the end of the year, which is October 31st, how many members do we have? Quota for the following year is 1 member higher. But we don't just stop with 1 member higher. There's a program called the Navigator Award. If you grow 3.5%, you become a Navigator state. And so they look at that. And then American Farm Bureau sets a goal for us also because they themselves have a quota that they're trying to meet. Benefits. There's a lot of benefits with being a Farm Bureau member. This is just a sampling of what, if you travel, if you order parts from Granger, if you do those sort of things, then you look at what your benefits are.
We have agreements with over 35 companies, both nationally and locally. And if you're a Farm Bureau member, once you get your Farm Bureau card, you can start taking advantage of these. I mentioned earlier that I did a career. I was talking to a couple of the gentlemen earlier. I had a career with the Department of Agriculture. And I spent 23 years going up and working the New Mexico State Fair. How I wish that I knew about this benefits, because the hotel I stayed in there was in here. It's still in there. And I can tell you that I spend a lot of money spending 22 to 25 days a year in a hotel. So you can do that, but there's a variety. There's a donut shop in Albuquerque. If you rent cars, Avis, Budget. You do your banking, you can do it with Farm Bureau Bank. We have a rent a car. I also rent a car. Granger, if you order parts for any type of part from Granger, you can get it. And then I believe the benefit there is you get free delivery or free shipping. Being a Farm Bureau member.
Being a Farm Bureau allows you to access Farm Bureau insurance, which helps if you choose to go the insurance way. Benefits for a variety of services like we were just talking about, hotels, Ford vehicles, car rentals. That's a big benefit to them. Being a member supports American agriculture, not just here in New Mexico, but all across the nation. We fund scholarships for individuals interested in agriculture. We support many youth programs, and I work diligently with a lot of those youth programs here in Doñana County, like FFA and 4-H. Support leadership development activities with the New Mexico Southern Ranch Camp. We get involved a lot with helping our young people get up and get going. And I have helped personally a lot of people here in Doñana County on private property issues in different areas, especially when Cruces decided to redistrict. I was involved with some redistricting issues, and I'm proud to do that. And we were successful in what we done.
How to become a Farm Bureau member. It's real easy. You log on to nmflb.org, Google that, and you'll be there. You click on join today and you process payment. Congratulations. You're a proud member of New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau now. It also has for you to view the benefits, go out and use those benefits. Thank you for being a Farm Bureau member. So if you want your food grown in America, you must make decisions to support that. Joining Farm Bureau is one of those decisions because Farm Bureau works to protect and promote American agriculture. Again, join us there. You will see this logo in several places. We've been providing services for over 100 years. There you go, since 1917. We are now in the question section.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you both for quite a presentation. I have some questions, but let's look around first. Does anybody else have a question for these gentlemen?
Charlie?
Yes.
May I give a question?
Please.
Yes, I would like, first of all, to the presenters, thank you very much for that interesting presentation. I came to New Mexico 57 years ago, and I've noticed that over time, a lot of the agriculture land has been converted to subdivisions. In fact, we used to have a cotton field right on campus, just east of El Paseo. And there was another cotton field across the street from Las Cruces High School. And over in Mesilla Park, it's just been rather astounding how much agriculture land has been converted to subdivisions. Do you folks in the Farm Bureau address that in any way?
No, not directly.
Well, this is all part
I have worked with some of these subdivisions there, and to develop a subdivision, you've got to turn your water rights over to that land to the city. And that's where the city generates water rights to service the whole city and community here. That answers a little bit of it, but I can't answer it any further than that.
To add to that, it carries over to the private property.
Is there any concern that we're losing too much agriculture land for subdivisions?
That has always been a concern, yes. But if you look at the technology that has been incorporated into agriculture, you were talking about chili fields by Las Cruces High. Because I also harvest chili in those fields. But in the old days, you used to plant a chili plant, and you'd get 12 chilies off of that plant. Nowadays, with the cross-pollination, cross-breeding of those plants, a plant can give you 28 to 45 chilies. So you're looking at your yield on those pepper plants, for example, being increased versus what they were before. And so, yes, there's other factors that will impact production. Competition from other countries with the chili industry, for example. But again, circling back to private property, if somebody comes and buys that property and wants to make it into a subdivision, do we say, no, you can't? Does the Farm Bureau say, no, you can't, no, you shouldn't? It goes against our private property rights. That individual has a right to do with that property what he chooses.
Yeah.
Well, I think what happens is a farm family uses it for agriculture, and when they die, the children want the money, so they sell it.
Yes,
That's right. That's bottom line, big part of the problem. Yes, sir.
and that is occurring, and that's why you see your 5 or 6 generations removed from the farm, because that happens. The farmer wanted it to stay in the family. When the farmer died, there was internal family disputes, and the farmer had intentions for it to go to the oldest boy, but the other siblings say that a third or a half or whatever it is comes to me. There's not enough funding in that farm to pay off half. If you pay off half, you lose the farm. And so you see that trend happening. That's why we work so hard to educate the youth, keep them involved so that they can stay on the farm. They can keep that farmland. And so, it's something that we see, but like I myself, my grandfather had a ranch down in Mexico, and the rest of my uncles and aunts are over there. I don't know who has a ranch anymore. It doesn't matter to us because we all moved over here. My parents migrated over here under the Bracero program, and so, but nonetheless, that happens across worldwide, where families split, and 100 acres become 50, and 50 becomes 25, and then at one point in time, it's not viable to make a living off of it.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. I see that David Rice has a hand up.
Just 2 questions. One, you mentioned membership about 20,000, I believe, for New Mexico, for your organization. Is that, what fraction of that are actually people working on farms versus folks that have joined because of other interests?
I would venture to say that's probably about 4%.
4%
of the 20,000.
96% of them are actually active in the ag industry and farming and ranching.
No, the other way around.
Oh, so 4% are actually active farmers and ranchers, and the other 96 are folks like us that are looking in and have other interests.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Insurance is a big part of that. You know, a lot of people have Farm Bureau insurance.
Okay, the second question I had was looking at the numbers you cited, and they're certainly typical, or for example, the declining numbers of young farmers and the issue of declining sizes in farms if again, the farm is passed on. Does the Farm Bureau here or elsewhere have any policies that are designed to encourage or underwrite new farmers? Because really it's a financial issue, it seems.
The Farm Bureau supports USDA or encourages USDA to fund programs to help young farmers and ranchers in purchasing land or purchasing livestock or purchasing equipment. The problem is right now, the way it was, or the previous 4 years, there was, if a young man wanted to get into farming, he had money to buy the land, didn't have or he had financial backing to buy the land, but he didn't have the backing for the equipment or the cattle or the seed or whatever it was that he was going to do. Now there's programs that will help that. So the Farm Bureau does support those things. The other thing that the Farm Bureau has policy to where the government, the government not to buy more land, but leave it for production. So we do have a policy for that. Whereas the government, I don't know if you read here recently where the Department of Game and Fish has gone and bought some land and make it into a preserve for giving it access for recreation. And then they say, well, we're going ahead and put this ranch for endangered species protection. So yes, to answer your question directly, Farm Bureau does have policy on that.
Thank you.
Paul.
Yeah, one of the big issues, of course, in irrigated agriculture is the water situation. And more and more, you know, we're expanding here in Las Cruces, a number of people living here. All you have to do is go out on the north side and you can see the houses going up. And, but anyway, the price of an acre foot of water rights is around 2,000 to 3,000 now. If that went up to 4,000 or 5,000, are we going to, is the fields going to go fallow when the price of that acre foot of water gets too high?
There's a possibility of that happening, but there's things that are being done to counter that. If you look at the fields here, they're flood irrigated, but now you're seeing where they're doing drip irrigation by putting all those. I don't know if you've driven up or down the valley where you see those big coils of rubber hose, plastic rubber hose that they use for drip irrigation on certain crops. That reduces your use of water by reducing the transevaporation of that water and then keeping it by the root so that the plant that wants it or needs it is there and it's accessible. So you're looking at that. You're looking at different ways of harvesting the water, whereas before, I can even tell you that 15 years ago, rainwater would come in here into the system, the Elephant Beauty Irrigation District system, and it would go on into the river because of the drains, the way it's designed. And it would go from here on to El Paso and on down to the Rio Grande to other users. Nowadays, what Elephant Beauty is doing is they're capturing that water, holding it here, and letting it replenish the aquifers. That water is no longer going south. And so as time goes by, you see technologies and the willingness of farmers using less water. One of the points I want to make here is that farmers and ranchers are using the water to produce our food. A lot of people get mad and say the farmers are using too much water, but they don't finish the sentence. They're using the water to produce our food. And so that's is it going to happen? It's projected. There's water underground. I just finished going through the Water Research Institute, Water Resources and Research Institute presentation. There is water on the West Mesa for the next 35 to 40 years. There's some issues with it, but it's there. And you're talking about economically, will the cost of the water coming from Elephant Butte, will it go up? Economically, there's at one point in time, do you change? What will it cost to get that water that's on the West Mesa that's brackish and clean it up? Okay. And so
it costs money.
Yes, it does. You're looking at the cost of El Paso has a plant.
Yeah.
Alamogordo has a plant where they're cleaning up that water. Okay, it costs money, yes. So it's just a matter of at what point in time. I'll tell you one other thing. There's the produce water where they're using water to pump back into the oil fields to get fracking. They put pressure on it, it creates pressure, and it brings out the oil. Then you get that water, and then what do you do with that water? It's tainted with a little bit of petroleum in it. And I had a lady that represents the New Mexico oil and gas industry approach one of our pecan producers and said, can you use produce water on your pecan orchard? His response was, will the public let me use produce water on my pecan orchard? Yeah. Will they buy my pecans knowing that I use produce water on my pecan orchard? Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily his decision, it's market driven.
Yeah. But anyway, water is an issue moving forward.
Yes, it is.
And how we deal with it is going to be very important.
It's going to be an issue from now on. And the more people we get, the bigger issue it's going to be.
Yeah, we're nominally out of time, but is there any other question before we shut this down? Let me ask one more question, and if you don't mind, there is a big difference, of course, between the what we think of as small farms and the factory farms. When you are educating people to be farmers, are you more thinking about the family farms or the big farms?
No, it's the family farm we want to try to preserve, but the economic part of that, the cost of a tractor, the cost of land, cost of labor and everything, can a family farm get big enough to compete commercially is the question, because of the cost per acre to stay a family farm. There's got to be a decision there, and that is a tough one, and that's going to have to be handled on an individual basis with whoever wants to start farming.
Here in New Mexico, let me add to that. Here in New Mexico, I believe, I don't remember where I picked up this statistic, but 99.7% of the farms in New Mexico are family owned.
Yeah, we're a big percentage of family-owned farms in the state of New Mexico. I'm proud of that. We're still family farm oriented, and that may help at your answer.
Very good, thank you. Well, thanks very much for your presentation.
Well, thank you for having us. I really appreciate visiting with all you folks. Me and Bud here, we're talking, and thank you for inviting us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. It's been very interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'll leave with, I have to do my job and do the ask. Please become a Farm Bureau member. If I don't ask, I'm not doing my job.
Okay. And then, Paul, you want to talk about next Sunday?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Charlie. Yeah, next Sunday we're going to have Jim Peach. He's a economist and he's retired, but he's now a fellowship over there. And he's going to talk about how come it's so difficult for New Mexico to have a robust economy and keep our students that come out of the university here in New Mexico. And so we'll address that question of economics and prosperous economics here in New Mexico.
Great. Thanks again, and we'll see you next Sunday.
All right. Very good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.